Vegas series and a little bit of the Colorado series. I was mainly watching the NBA playoffs because last year I spent a lot more time watching the NHL playoffs. This year they came in altering a little bit because the games, between the time zones and games being on similar times. Last year I prioritized NHL, thankfully. Won the cup last year, but this year prioritized the NBA. So I'm not going to have as much to say about these playoffs as I did the NBA, but I still wanted to talk about it. The point of these videos is relaxation anyway, right? So we'll start with the one that I watched the most of, the one that was most restrained to me. That's Dallas Stars versus Vegas Golden Knights. Now, funnily enough, I did end up getting this prediction right. I said Dallas in 7. That's exactly what ended up happening. But the frustrating bit is Vegas, we won the first 2 games and took home ice, but then they come back, take 2. And then it ends up, we win game 6, but then that game 7. And the problem I had with this series really is it felt like the first 2 games we came out of the gate hot. And then, like, for the first time in his career, Pete DeBoer made an adjustment against Vegas. Like, Vegas has had Pete DeBoer's number for years and years and years now. But, like, he finally made an adjustment, and the team just never responded well after that Game 3 loss. And I was, like, saying to my friend, I was like, after Game 3, it felt like Vegas lost the series, and everything else was just kind of going through the motions. Like, as soon as we lost Game 3, I literally texted my friend, and I'm like, I think the series just ended. Ended up being correct. And I think I don't know whose decision it was. I don't know if we'll ever know whose decision it was. But Mark Stone came back from injury way too early. Like he had that goal Game 1, but then after that he looked bad. He wasn't really getting anything done on offense or on defense. He was slow on the ice. He was like always wincing and in pain. And I'm sitting there like, why is this dude playing? Like, I know he's the captain. But you have Dorofeyev sitting on the bench who had been scoring at a really good rate through the regular season. And I'm just sitting there like, why is this happening? And then Marchessault, reigning Conn Smythe winner, was like the leading scorer on the team in last year's playoffs, who is coming up into an off season where he needs either a contract extension or to be like, some sort of let him go, some other thing. We have to figure out his contract situation. He was a ghost these playoffs. I don't remember a single goal by him in this series. I can't recall off the top of my head. And then Shea Theodore at this point, Shea Theodore, it feels like we've been waiting for him to like take that next step for so long. I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm like, I don't think he's going to. Like right now with the roster Vegas has, he's kind of like, I feel like he's like the 3rd best D-man most nights, and like he has his moments, he has those flashes that makes you think like, okay, like this dude can be the guy. He can be one of the best defensemen in the league. He can do this, but then he'll like just regress hard out of nowhere. So I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting offseason for Vegas. They're either going to have to get rid of guys to make room for a Marchessault extension or let Marchessault go. Personally, like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing Shea Theodore go in a trade for somebody. I don't know for who, but I feel like there has to be some sort of move. And like I said, Mark Stone was definitely not healthy enough to play in this season. He was not 100%. If you've watched Mark Stone at 100%, then you watched from this series, he's not 100%. Being all credit to Dallas, like I said, they made the adjustment, which is something Pete DeBoer has like struggled with against Vegas in his career. Like he never has made timely adjustments in series against Vegas. It feels like Vegas will like figure out his system and then that's it. He never will change his system. The same thing happened like when he was with the Sharks. the same thing would happen when he was with Vegas. Like, it felt like he would always stick to his systems even when his systems weren't working, which was extremely frustrating. But then in this series with the Stars, he goes down 2-0, and then he actually adjusted his systems. And I was actually kind of shocked. I was almost kind of angry, to be honest. I was like, okay, Pete, you finally decided to do that for the first time in your career, and it had to be. It just had to be now against us. It's gonna be an interesting one. Jake Ottinger as well. He put up a great performance. He's 5th right now for the playoffs for goals against average. What's extremely frustrating is that Aiden Hill is 3rd at 1.7. So Aiden Hill, over the course of the series, was actually the better goalie. It just didn't really matter. He even has Ottinger beaten save percentage, but the problem was the Logan Thompson games. And I said, coming into these playoffs, I have concerns about Logan Thompson. I'm not convinced Logan Thompson can be a 1A goalie in the NHL. I think that he was called up too early. I think that he was given the net too early. And I think if you're carrying Thompson and Hill as your 1A, 1B next season, if you're Vegas, I don't think that's good enough. I think Vegas might need to have a look at an upgrade in net. I'm not sure exactly who may put Thompson back down. If you can, I don't know if you can be able to, but yeah, that's obviously for a later discussion. But Wyatt Johnson in this series, I feel like Wyatt Johnson was always like just getting timely power play goals. It felt like they didn't have been power play goals, but it always felt like it was Wyatt Johnson was the one like making everything happen for Dallas whenever Dallas would go up, or like if they would get the first goal. I feel like it was always him getting it. So, you know, he's still pretty young. Okay, Winnipeg, Colorado. I pegged this to be a Winnipeg win. Funny. I did not expect this. This, in my opinion, is like the definition of the regular season doesn't matter. There was that electric game 1 where there was 13 combined goals. Winnipeg won that game 7-6. And I was kind of like, okay, like that wasn't the most convincing win, but it was interesting. And okay, maybe they'll build on this. But it was just all Colorado from that point. And Colorado, you know, for me, Colorado is shaky in net. I'm not confident in their tending at all. And Winnipeg, you know, theoretically had one of the best goalies in the entire playoffs. But, you know, Winnipeg let in 6-5, 6-5-6. They alternated letting in 6 and 5 goals in games. Seems like you're allowing those kind of goals when you have Hellebuck in net. Like, how is that even possible when you look at how they were in the regular season defensively, and their win streaks, everything, like they looked really good. And I'm like, I mean, the regular season just literally doesn't matter, and it's the perfect example of that. And this is like the 3rd time now I feel like I've been tricked by this Winnipeg team. I keep being like, okay, you know, I've talked about this so I feel like every year I say the same exact thing. Like, I get hyped up on Winnipeg. I keep being like, okay, Winnipeg of all the Canadian teams might have like the best path to the Cup final. Like, they might be the team to do it. And then they flame out in the playoffs. Year after year after year, they flame out in the playoffs. I think they lost to Vegas last year. I don't remember who they lost to the year before, but they had another loss against Vegas a couple seasons before that. Like, they just keep flaming out in the playoffs, like earlier than they should. And like, their players aren't even showing up either. Like, the guys that you need to be showing up, because they let in, like, game 1 they scored 7 goals, game 2 they scored 2, game 3 they scored 2, game 4 they scored 1, game 5 they scored 3. Like, it's unacceptable, honestly. And this is a team there's already been like all this noise about, I don't even want to say like relocation, but it's like there's been so much concern about ticket sales in that market because Winnipeg has such a weak corporate market. sponsors on board. We need to get like big name, multi-million-dollar companies to be buying, front row seats and injecting a lot of money because Winnipeg is not making enough revenue. What would have helped Winnipeg get corporate sponsors and get, sell 100 seats to some big name company if they could win a playoff series. But I feel like, and I might find myself right back here next year, but I feel like at this point I've learned my lesson with Winnipeg. I'm not going to get hyped up on their regular season anymore because it's not going to matter. And I think whatever's going on, this Winnipeg core group, this group of guys, this iteration of the team, they're not gonna do it. I don't want to say like they're frauds or whatever else, but like they'll be good. They'll be so good. Like I said, they had that huge winning streak in the regular season. They'll be impressive. They'll make you buy in. You'll be like, oh, this year might be different. Nope. Boom. They get punched right in the face again, over and over and over. So I'm not gonna make the mistake anymore. I'm until this Winnipeg team like blows up and then rebuilds and comes back. I'm done. Like I'm not buying into their hype anymore because this team's never gonna go all the way. I think at this point, this Winnipeg team might need to just tear down, rebuild. But on the other side of the ice, you want to talk about this Colorado team. I mean, I don't want to say I was underrating them, but this season they did not look as good as they had in seasons past. They were not looking as dominant. You obviously still had Nathan McKinnon, who's one of the best players in the entire league, like top 5 currently, and Cale Makar, of course. But like outside of those two, you're kind of like, I'm not too sure about this offense. Like I don't know about their depth. Their goalie is a big question mark. Like, you're just, I personally didn't have a ton of confidence. Looking at other sports media, NHL, YouTube channels, a lot of people did not have confidence in this Colorado team. But they showed up and they just hung a ton of goals. They let their, hang out on the ice. And it's going to be interesting to see how that translates against this Dallas team that's very good. You're going to see, like, okay, did they just perform that well? Maybe because this Winnipeg team wasn't that great, or is this Colorado team just, like, found its stride all of a sudden? We'll see. The series against Dallas. But, yeah, the Colorado team, I don't even think it was, like, even one guy. Oh yeah, Nick Chuskin has 7 goals. Lehkonen has 5 goals. So it's not even the guys that you think. How many did McKinnon have? McKinnon had 2. Rannon had 2. Makar had 2. So it's not even them, which is scary. Because I thought they were going to have to rely heavily on those guys. At least the way I was looking at them, like this roster, I'm like, I'm not wholly confident that they have the depth here. But those guys only scored 2 goals and they were hanging, like I said, huge numbers, like football scores on Winnipeg. Okay. From beyond this point, it's just been like highlights and watching the hockey guy recaps and like reading some stuff. Just full disclosure. Vancouver, Nashville. I thought this might be a sweep for Vancouver. It ends up not being, which actually kind of has me a little bit concerned. I'm not even gonna lie. Thatcher Demko was injured. I don't know if he did end up playing a game or not. I don't think so, but it seems like from what I've seen that he will be playing in the next round. But like game 2, they lost 4-1. Game 5 was 2-1. I think that was even in overtime. No, it wasn't. Game 4 was the overtime game. That game 2 was a little bit like, and going in against expected against Los Angeles, and Vancouver struggled a bit more than I anticipated them to. With an overtime game against this Nashville team, it's not to take anything away from this Nashville team. But still, this Nashville team, though, being such a young team, winning 2 games against a team like the Canucks that were so dominant in the regular season, I think that's a good showing for them. I want to see who the leading scorer for the Predators was. It was Philip Forsberg. Who had 6 points. So I guess actually, that was kind of one of their veteran presence guys there. But yeah, for Nashville, it's a good showing for them. I don't think many people expected them to win this series, but they did make it a series, which I didn't anticipate them doing. On the other side, I expected the Los Angeles Kings to make this a bit more of a series than they did against Edmonton. Game 1, they had more offense than I expected. 4-7, Edmonton wins that one, but they netted 4 goals. And then they net 5 the next game where they win 5-4. But that offense never felt sustainable to me because this Los Angeles team's whole identity, like I talked about in my prediction video, has been defense, forechecking, defense shutdown. And yes, this Edmonton team is very good. They have, elite players, obviously. But this Los Angeles defense doing this little, they allowed Edmonton to score 7, 4, 6, 4, and then the one outlier was when Edmonton only scored 1 goal. But in that game, Los Angeles didn't get anything. So the one game that their defense actually did perform well and shut down Edmonton for the most part, only like 1 goal, their offense didn't show up. I was looking at this Edmonton team, they win it in 5, it could have easily been 4, against this Kings team that had one of the, my light just died, hold on, I'm gonna finish this and I'll charge it. This Kings team that had one of the better defenses in the entire league. That makes me, Edmonton kind of goes up my internal power rankings a little bit here, because I'm like, alright, well, if they're pulling that off against this defense, teams that have a worse defense, I think, are going to be in for a lot of trouble here. Okay, I got my light fixed, kinda, it's plugged in, but just over there. Where was I? Edmonton. So they had this very, very good defensive team that they basically picked apart. And you can even see it if you look at the skating leaders. Connor McDavid leads all skaters at 12 points. 1 goal, 11 assists. Leon Draisaitl 10 points, 5 goals, 5 assists. Bouchard had 9, Hyman had 8. Hyman was a huge X factor in this series. And it makes me more nervous for the Canucks, because the Canucks struggled a bit, not a ton, but a bit, against the Predators. Oilers picked apart a defense that, LA has a better forecheck than Vancouver. LA has a better defensive scheme than Vancouver. Vancouver's a much better offense, right? So that, but if you're going firepower for firepower with Edmonton, I don't know. Now we're going to move to the East. I thought that the Lightning could take this in 7. I thought they just need to get healthy. You got Kucherov on an absolute tear. But no, the Panthers came in and put them down in 5 games. Where did Vasilevsky at a .897? That's brutal. That has to be one of the worst playoff save percentages of Vasilevsky's career. down 1 game to Boston. The game's already happened here, and that was actually kind of like 5-1, like brutal. But we'll talk about that next. Boston, Toronto. It goes to game 7, but after that game 1, you were kind of just like, oh, you just had that feeling like it's gonna happen again. And I'm with Toronto now, where I am with Winnipeg now. I'm no longer gonna allow the regular season greatness of Toronto to cloud my playoff perceptions of them. I've let it happen a couple years now. I'm like, alright, they're gonna be different this time, yada yada yada. No. William Nylander is the only one of like the big 3 core forward, whatever you want to call them, that deserves that huge contract. Austin Matthews, I think he even missed a game or 2, but he did nothing. Mitch Marner, I defend Mitch Marner quite a bit. Of that group, he is my favorite. I'd like to see him in Vegas someday, potentially, but he did absolutely nothing in these playoffs. He still has 1 year left. As Bill time, like, oh, trade him. I don't think they're gonna trade him. He has a no movement clause. And then people were like, oh, nobody's gonna pay him. Some team is gonna pick him up and probably give him a $12 million contract. So just to get that out there before Toronto fans would ever, like, because he's for as bad as he's been in the playoffs, he is a 100-point regular season guy. So that's enough to take a team from out of the playoffs to into the playoffs. And if you're a general manager in your job, you keeping your job depends on whether or not you make the playoffs. Absolutely, you're going to get Mitch Marner. And I think that was even on 31 Thoughts today, so that he was talking about how there's like 20 teams out there that would be willing to give Marner like a $12 million contract or something like that. But he was bad this series, and the Toronto Maple Leafs fans are already coming out like with the pitchforks out. First it was Dubas, now he's gone. Then it was Keefe, but like nobody's pointing the finger at Shanahan, like, or just the organization in general, and like the weird front office structure that organization has. And weirdly enough, like Morgan Riley seems to get by with a pass. Like nobody's pointing the finger at Morgan Riley when he also was a ghost. I think you keep Nylander, you keep Matthews, and to try to dump, you can keep Knees. I don't know exactly how you say it. Knees, nice. And the brutal thing is like Wall, Joseph Wall, actually was the best goaltender in goals against average, 0.86 goals against. But I think he got hurt. He played the 3 games, started 2. He won both the games he started. Only allowed 2 goals against, 0.86 goals against average, 0.96 save%, so he was on a heater, but then he gets hurt, which is just really unfortunate both for the Maple Leafs and for Joseph Wall. But this Boston team, like somebody in the comments, I always call these comments out because they're dumb, but someone's like, oh, you're a Boston hater or whatever. No, I'm not. It's just that, like, I think I have the opposite problem that I have with Winnipeg and Toronto. What I have with Boston is Boston keeps, like, losing these guys. Or, like, they're, like, oh, this piece is gone, this guy's gone, whatever. Or, like, and I keep being like, okay, well, now surely this is the time that they lose a step, or surely like, now is the time that they fall off a cliff, right? Like Bergeron's gone, okay, they can't be as good as last year anymore because he's gone. But they just keep winning in spite of what happens to the roster. So whereas like I'm overrating like Winnipeg or Toronto because their regular season, and not say Boston didn't have a good regular season, but I'm like underrating Boston because in my mind I'm like, okay, surely at some point the other shoe has to drop, but it just refuses to drop. And full disclosure, I'm probably going to do it again next season because something's going to happen. They're going to lose lose a guy, they're gonna trade somebody. I'm like, they're a year older. Surely this year Marchand finally like takes a step back, or his production goes down, right? Like as you expect to happen, but then it just doesn't happen, and that's just how again Boston it's like a machine that keeps going. So they beat Toronto in 7 in the first round. This is a brutal, brutal spot for Toronto to be in. Rangers sweep the Capitals. I predicted them to sweep the Capitals, actually. Capitals, they were old. The problem, Ovechkin, there's a problem earlier in the season. Ovechkin went on this big streak where he wasn't scoring goals, and he turned it on at the end of the year, but for the first, 30 games or so this season, he just looked disinterested. He didn't even seem like he cared that he was playing a game. He would just kind of be standing around. He was only ever really shooting on the power play. And he looked like that in this series. It's like, bro, don't you realize you're in the playoffs? I think there's even one game where he got held without a single shot attempt, or he was all-time low in shot attempts for a playoff series or something. You do one thing better than pretty much everybody, and that's putting the puck in the net. You can't do that if you're not shooting. He needed to be shooting way, way more, at least 5 shots a game, if not 6, 7, 8 shots a game if you wanted to get in goals, but he wasn't shooting, let alone getting goals, and they get swept. Really only one of the games was competitive, and that was game 2, but this Rangers team is in a great spot right now. For me, as far as rooting interest goes, the winner of the Rangers-Hurricanes series is probably the one I want to see go all the way. I can't bring myself to cheer on another Western Conference team unless it's Seattle, just because I have a friend who's in Seattle that likes the teams. Okay, if Seattle's in the playoffs and Vegas was gone, I'd cheer for them. And then I have a friend, one of my best friends lives in Tampa Bay. He's a big Tampa Bay Lightning fan, so I think he would kill me if I was cheering for the Panthers. I could have been cheering for the Leafs, but they went out. So I think, the winner of that Rangers-Carolina series is kind of going to be my rooting interest the rest of the way. And then this Islanders-Carolina series, this one, the Islanders get one. It took them till overtime to do it, but Carolina just ran over them. Just 4 games to 1. I predicted Carolina in that one as well. That series, at least by the one I paid the least amount of attention to, just because that one was the worst time zone wise. Those games are going to be on 4 in the morning my time. All the East Coast games were on between 4 and 7 a.m. for me, whereas the West Coast games came on around 9 a.m. But it was a brutal schedule, to be honest. But Carolina takes that one 4 games to 1. They're playing New York right now. 1-0. Okay. I just want to check one thing real quick. So my predictions are around 2. I'm just going to go quick and dirty here. Avalanche versus Stars. I think that Colorado has the better forwards. I think Dallas is the way better goaltender. I think Colorado has a better defense. I think special teams probably goes to Dallas as well. This feels super close. But Dallas is coming off a 7-game series. Colorado has been getting some rest. So I think given that edge, I'm going to say Colorado in 7. Plus I had a Stars fan DM me some pretty nasty stuff, and so if they lose that series, I can rub his nose in it. But I think Colorado in 7. Vancouver, Edmonton. I originally would have gone Vancouver here. But given the outcome of their round 1 series, seeing how like Edmonton is buzzing right now, they picked apart an incredible defense. Thatcher Demko might be coming back, but if he's working his way back from injury, he might not be at 100%. I'm going to give the edge here to Edmonton. Maybe Edmonton in 6. Setting up a Western Conference final between Colorado, Edmonton. Florida, Boston. Like, there's already one game down in this series, so it's kind of cheating a little bit, but Florida looked completely outmatched by Boston that entire game. Give me the Boston Bruins in 5. No. 7. Give me the Boston Bruins in 7. And Rangers, Carolina. Give me the Rangers in 5. Setting up the Boston Bruins versus the New York Rangers in the Eastern Conference Final. Now, an unfortunate side effect of these playoffs is this went from a playoff bracket where I felt like Canada had the best odds it's had in a long time of winning a cup between Winnipeg, Vancouver, Edmonton, and Toronto. So now there's only going to be one Canadian team in the Final Four, because unfortunately for Vancouver and Edmonton, they ended up on the same side of the bracket, like they're playing each other, so that's one Canadian team eliminating another Canadian team. Toronto's already out, so Canada is only going to have a 25% chance of a Canadian team being in the Stanley Cup final. So, and what's that then if you take 50? So like a 12.5% chance right now for a Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup. Brutal. Whereas, like I said, going into this, they had good odds in my opinion. But I'm sorry, I did not have more to say. Like I said, the point of this video is in general is like relaxation more than anything else. As these teams consolidate, I'll be able to watch more games. I was already able to watch Boston versus Florida. But just with the first round with the NBA playoffs also going on, you're trying to get that more attention. I was just unable to really watch that much of these playoffs this year, unfortunately. But like I said, apologies for that. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought so far about these playoffs and your team's performance in general. If your team was in the playoffs or still is. If you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for content just like this almost every single day. Until next time, guys.